Hey everyone, welcome back to another week of the Triple Play. This is Danielle, and this week I'm joined by Henry and Mason, and we have a lot to talk about, especially outside of UT sports. So let's go ahead and dive in. Starting with the NCAA tournament, March Madness is completely over now. It's kind of sad to say that, but we're going to start with the women's tournament first. UConn wins again. No surprise here. Pretty sure everybody had them pegged as the winner on their brackets, and if you didn't, I'm very surprised. UConn beat Notre Dame 63-53. This is the third straight tournament win for UConn, which also makes it the 10th tournament title for Gino Auriemma. So now he is tied with John Wooden for the most tournament titles. UConn finishes the season 38-1. And I mean, going into this game, I know I myself was saying that if anybody could beat UConn, it was going to be Notre Dame, and for them to only lose by 10, not too bad considering how strong UConn's been, but I don't really think this game was much of a surprise.
No.
Looking at some of their top scorers, excuse me, I mean, UConn just came out shooting really well as usual for them to get 63 points. Their top scorer they had two players that scored 15, so I mean that's kind of low for what you'd think for a top scorer from UConn, but for two of them to get a combined of 30 points, that's really impressive. That was from Jefferson and Mosqueda Lewis. I hope I said that correctly. But Brianna Stewart only had 8 points, and I think that was really surprising considering how strong she was this season. I was really expecting her to have double digits, but I mean, she really showed up in the rebounds with 15 rebounds. I mean, that's the most out of any player from that played in this game. The most that one individual player for Notre Dame had was 11, and that was Taya Reamer. So overall, great season from UConn. Like I said, I don't really think anybody's surprised that they won 38-1 overall, 18-0 in the American Conference. So impressive win for UConn. We'll see if they're going to make it 4 next year, 4 straight titles, but I'm really hoping that the Lady Vols will show up and go a little bit further than they did this year. But I mean, overall, very exciting series for women, or season, I should say, for women's basketball. And looking over at the men's game, this was so exciting, such a fun game to watch. Duke beats Wisconsin 68-63. Really thought Wisconsin had it.
Yeah, they got. I'm not gonna say they lost because of the final lost ball call, because that's not. They couldn't score points in the last 4 minutes. That's what kind of killed them.
Yeah, it was really tough for them to score in that time period. I mean, Duke, going into this, they were very, very strong. Everybody knew that. But their youth, I think, was what really stuck out. I mean, they only had a few seniors on the team that really stuck out. But, I mean, with guys like Okafor, I mean, absolutely incredible season that he had. But, I mean, just looking at this game, I really expected more out of Kaminsky. He did have 21 points. That's a lot there.
And 12 rebounds.
Yeah, 12 rebounds too, but I don't know. Something in me just kept saying he could get way over 20.
Sam Decker was disappointing in that game.
Absolutely.
The previous games he's had his jump shot going, and the guy only shoots 33% from downtown anyway.
Yeah.
And in that game, he just went cold. And without him, they had to put a lot of heat on Kaminsky.
0 for 6 from 3.
Yeah, he was 0 for 6, and that was really tough. But looking at Kaminsky, he was 2 for 4 from the 3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really exciting for him. You know, I mean, that tall of a guy getting 2 3-pointers, that was really exciting. And he was also 5 from 6 from the free throw line, which is really impressive. But looking over at Duke, Tyus Jones was perfect from the free throw line, and he ended up scoring 23 points for Duke with 5 rebounds, all on defense. So, I mean, that was really impressive there, but this Duke team looked really good in this game.
Yeah, they were. Tyus Jones went off and just kind of handled Wisconsin's older, bigger guards.
Yeah, definitely. And this gives Mike Krzyzewski 5 titles now. That's very impressive for him. I mean, you'd kind of think he would have more with the way that he has, like, such great teams and the way he coaches and everything, you know, but
and he's been at Duke for forever.
He has been there for such a long time, but I mean, this was a great season. I think this was kind of like the ideal season for Duke. I mean, granted, they did end the season 35-4. Those 4 losses were pretty important losses, but they were 15-3 in the ACC, which was really impressive because the ACC is a really dominant conference. As not really as of late, but definitely in the past, it has been one of the top-notch conferences. Just very exciting game for Duke there. But looking over at Kaminsky, this guy has had a great tournament in terms of playing, of course, but also with all the awards that he's racked up. I didn't think that the list was going to end at all. Looking at just some of the hardware that he's won, Naismith, the AP, John Wooden, Oscar Robertson, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Award for Nation's Top Center, and the NABC Player of the Year. I hope he has room for all of these trophies. I really hope he does, because, I mean, he deserved every single one of them. He was one of my favorite players to watch this whole season.
Yeah.
I thought he was very impressive, so he definitely deserves to get every award that he's gotten. And looking at terms of who's going to the draft out of this game, Okafor, the Duke freshman standout, no surprise that he's heading to the draft. I mean, everybody kind of predicted that at the beginning of the tournament. But Decker for Wisconsin is also heading there. He's a junior heading into the draft. Not really as much of a surprise seeing him go with how great he's been. Yeah. But I was hoping he would stay and just really, like, power up a little bit more because there's so much potential out of him for this next season.
Yeah, he's got to fix that jump shot before he really takes that thing. That guy can be a really, really great player if he fixes his jump shot.
I absolutely agree there. And speaking of drafts, I feel like you can't really talk about draft entries without talking about Kentucky. And they definitely made it a big deal. On Thursday, I believe it was, Thursday afternoon at 2:30, there was a press conference held that was shown on ESPN. And here we saw that 7 players from Kentucky's team this year were heading to the draft. And out of those 7, we have 3 freshmen, 3 sophomores, and 1 junior. So we'll start with the freshmen first. I don't think this is much of a surprise for anybody to hear that Towns is going. That's Karl Anthony Towns, Trey Lyles. But the one that surprised me was Devin Booker. Going into this season, he had so much potential with his three-point shot. I know I even talked about it a lot, that he had a beautiful three-pointer. By the time he got to the end of the season, he was struggling. I mean, whenever he played against us here in Knoxville, he had 3 3-pointers, I want to say it was.
Yeah, 3 for 9 or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I mean, he struggled on 3-point shots as the season progressed. I mean, he could really score in the paint. He could rebound whenever needed, but in terms of shooting, it just really went down, and I'm really surprised to see him go to the draft.
Yeah, I was surprised to see a lot of those guys go to the draft. I mean, a guy like Willie Cauley-Stein, really limited on the offensive end. Right defender, he's kind of a JaVale McGee type of player.
Absolutely.
High energy, going to get a lot of hustle points, a lot of rebounds.
Yeah, and he's the junior from the team who's going to be going. And looking over at the sophomores that you have Dakari Johnson, and then you have Aaron and Andrew Harrison. I was really hoping they were going to stay for their junior season, not just in terms of how they could grow in their playmaking skills, but, I mean, they could bring a lot to this Kentucky team in terms of leadership. I mean, these are 2 guys, granted, they had to flip-flop. Like, one season you could see Aaron doing better. The next season you'd see Andrew. And they even went with games, too. It would just go back and forth. But I really thought that if they would have came back for their junior years, there could have been something special with that Kentucky team next year. So now it's kind of all up in the air a little bit. But one thing that Calipari did mention in the press conference was that he said that, quote, if Alex didn't get hurt, it would have been 8, quote unquote there. But, I mean, I don't really think that's much of a surprise. Everybody would have seen that 8th player going. I think I've said this a lot this season, but if Poythress would have been healthy going into the end of the season and going into the tournament, this would have been a completely different story for Kentucky in terms of the outcome of their season. Poythress brought so much to this team. I mean, it was tough to see him go down. I mean, even for people who aren't Kentucky fans, I mean, that guy brought a lot of heart to that team. And he was a player that I really enjoyed watching. But that was a tough blow for them. And if he could have been healthy, so much could have been different. And I think in terms of who would have been drafted and where, it would have been much more different too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But overall, for college basketball, exciting season. We wanted a little bit more out of the Vols for the men and the women's, but the women did great. Men also had a good season. We're looking forward to what is to come next season for the Lady Vols and for the men Vols, especially with Rick Barnes here on Rocky Top now to lead the men. We're still really, really excited to have him here in Knoxville, so there's a lot to look forward to there. Going over to Lady Vols softball, they swept the doubleheader last Wednesday against Eastern Kentucky, 7-2 and then 7-4. It was supposed to be played on Tuesday, but they had to postpone it due to weather. And then they had a series this weekend against LSU, and they ended up losing it 1-2, which is really exciting. I was really afraid they were going to get swept, but Sunday's game was really exciting, but we'll get to that in a second. We're going to start with Friday's game. It was a loss. They lost 5-1, but Lexi Overstreet had an RBI double in the second, and she ended up going 1-3 batting, which wasn't too bad. And Cheyenne Tarango, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, gave up 5 runs in 2 1/3 innings alone, but Gretchen Aucoin came in to throw 4 2/3 scoreless innings with 2 strikeouts. I mean, Gretchen has been lights out this season. Looking over at Saturday's game, it was another loss for the Lady Vols, 7-4. They were down 4-0 going into the bottom of the 4th, scored 2, but then LSU brought in 3 runs in the 5th. Lady Vols just couldn't get a strong rally after that. I know they had maybe one run apiece in the final few innings, so that was really good for them to like keep that little bit of momentum to get those runs, but it just definitely was not enough to keep up. But Annie Aldretti, Gretchen Aucoin, Megan Gear, and Hannah Devote all had runs in that game, so that was really good for them. But Sunday's win against top-ranked LSU, I love saying that sentence. Whenever the Lady Vols can beat a top-ranked team, that is fantastic. Whenever any Vols team can beat a top-ranked team, that's exciting. But this LSU team has been killer to watch this season. Annie Aldretti comes into this game. She goes 2 for 3 with a 3-run homer that was just absolutely insane. Rainey Gaffin pitched 7 innings, allowing 8 hits and 5 runs with 6 strikeouts. So the Lady Vols ended up winning 8-5. And this was a really exciting game. This was really good for the Lady Vols, too, I think, going into the rest of their season. I mean, getting a win against LSU like that, I mean, they did lose the series, sure, but for you to have one win against the top-ranked team, that's really exciting. Looking over at baseball, they lost their home series against number 23 Missouri this past weekend, 1-2. The first game was, they lost it 1-2. I'm sorry. Thursday, they ended up beating Missouri 5-2. Andy Cox pitched 6 1/3 innings, allowing 6 hits, 2 runs, and 8 strikeouts. And Kristen Stewart, who just came off of being the SEC Player of the Week last week, went 2 for 4 with a home run and 3 RBIs. So, I mean, that was a really good performance from him. He's been really strong. Of course, he's been strong since he's on the USA team. He's definitely, like I've said on here before, if he's not the best player on the team, he's one of the top players that the Vols have. Looking at Friday's matchup, they lost 8-3. The Vols had a 2-0 lead from the 2nd to the 5th innings when Missouri scored 6 runs, and the Vols just couldn't make the comeback after that. And then Saturday, they lost 10-1. This was a tough loss for the Vols. Missouri scored 4 runs in the 5th and 8 innings. So, I mean, 8 runs combined in 2 innings. That's just absolutely insane. But, I mean, this Missouri team, whenever they get their bats going, they get their bats going. They're pretty good. I mean, whenever it comes to baseball, though, in the SEC, you have the same teams. Like, you have your Mississippi States, you have your Alabamas, you have your South Carolinas, because they're always up there. And Kentucky last year was really good. Haven't really kept up with them much this season. Now that they don't have, like, AJ Reed, like they did last year. Or he still might be on the team. I'm not completely sure. I don't follow them as much as I did last season. But, I mean, for them to lose the series 1-2 wasn't too bad against a ranked team. I know the baseball Vols have been struggling quite a bit this season, but for them to get that 5-2 win on Thursday night was definitely really big. And Christian Stewart, like I said, he's a playmaker, and he can definitely come out swinging whenever he needs to. The Vols are now 15-16. They're 5-10 in the SEC. SEC play is just, it's been tough, but it usually is. And speaking of baseball, the first week of the MLB season has come and gone. I think one thing that's quick to note about this, the Braves are 5-1. I was wondering if they were ever going to lose for a while. They went 5-0 going into Sunday, and they ended up losing to the Mets. But, I mean, the Braves have just looked really good so far. I mean, their pitching game has been pretty solid, I would say. It's tough seeing Jason Grilli out there now closing for them. I mean, since he was a former Pirate, and I've mentioned on the show I'm a Pirates fan, but, I mean, so far, I'm really surprised with how well the Braves have been doing.
It is still very early, though. So
Absolutely.
You can't really, I mean, they play 160 games. You can't really make too much of an assumption on where they are right now.
Absolutely.
As a team just after 6 games.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Speaking of that, it's kind of tough to make assumptions after the first few games. If you look at the teams that were in the World Series last year and where they're standing right now, The reigning World Series champions, the Giants, are currently last in the NL West at 3-4. And then there's only one undefeated team left in major leagues right now. There were two before the show, but the Pirates handed the Tigers their first loss. But the only other team is the Royals. And they were the runners-up. And they almost had a Cinderella season last season. Right now they're 6-0. They're looking great. They're going to lose a game at some point. That's bound to happen. But for them to have this strong of a start, I think this could be a momentum booster. There's still so much more, like you said, Henry, with what to expect from the MLB. Because, we're still just, right now, we're going to be seven games in after today for most teams. So there's still so much to look forward to. There's been so many high-scoring games. I know last night the Yankees and Red Sox had a really exciting game. The Yankees ended up winning that one. I want to say it was 14-4. Yeah, 14-4. The Yankees had 16 hits in that game, which was amazing to see, especially with them coming off of their Derek Jeter's retirement. So I know some fans made signs for the opening game in the Bronx that said, "Welcome to the year 1 AD." So I thought that was kind of clever. It's just weird watching a game and not seeing Derek Jeter. Because I know for a lot of MLB fans, I know for us in here, baseball has been Derek Jeter. He's always been, a central part of baseball. So it's just weird to watch a game and not see him there. But so far, the season's been exciting. Looking at the NL Central, I thought it was really kind of funny, but in some ways just kind of scary. The Cubs and Cardinals are tied right now. The Reds are leading the NL Central. They've just looked really solid so far. They swept the Pirates in the opening series. But right now, the Cardinals and Cubs are a fifth of a game back. I want to say they're a half game back in the NL Central. So who knows? Maybe the Cubs could have a really good season. I've been saying it for 6 years that they were going to win it all in 2015. I'm sticking with that. It was nice to see John Lester on the mound for them on opening day. It was really exciting stuff. Hopefully we'll get to see more of him and see him get some major wins with the Cubs. I know they'll definitely need it this season. But looking over at the NHL, playoff season starts this Wednesday, and it is so exciting. I know we're all really excited for it here. But looking at the playoff spots that have been clinched, they're all set. Like I said, it starts Wednesday. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference first. We're going to have the Canadiens taking on the Senators, Lightning versus the Red Wings, Rangers taking on the Penguins, and the Capitals versus the Islanders. And looking at these four matchups, these are really solid matchups.
Yeah. Montreal, they were great the regular season, but Ottawa is one of the hottest teams in the league.
Yeah.
That just played absurd for the past couple months ever since Andrew Hammond got called up. Just out of this world, really good. Came out of nowhere to make the playoffs, really. They looked like they were done with 3 months left in the season, probably. But somehow they're in.
Definitely.
Good to see the Canadian teams back in the playoffs. It just feels...
Yeah.
The playoffs just feel better when the Canadian teams are in it.
I agree there. It's definitely nice to see them back. But I think for the Eastern Conference, I'm looking forward to the Penguins Rangers series. Like we were talking about before, this is one of the. It's been a while since the Penguins. I still have baseball in my mind. Since the Penguins have been able to go into a game as the underdogs, and they're the 4th seed right now, going on number 1 seed Rangers team, which that game will happen Thursday night at 7. But this Rangers team, the Rangers are always impressive to watch, and this season they've been super strong.
Yeah.
They play really fast brand of hockey is what they play.
They do, and that speed is just killer. The Capitals, too, they're number 2 seed taking on the Islanders. I think that's going to be a really exciting matchup. Their play style seems to be pretty similar. But Ovechkin, I have a feeling he's going to find a way to just get through the Islanders.
The Islanders do have Halak. And if you
That's
remember
true.
a few years back when the Canadians took them on, took them out, and also the Penguins out that year, Halak was just a brick wall in there. So if that could happen again... Yeah. So much of the playoffs is goalie.
Absolutely.
Whose goalie gets hot. There's some great goalies in the playoffs this year as well.
Definitely.
Lundqvist is another guy there.
Always a solid one.
Carey Price, obviously. There's a lot. The East seems like just about anybody could make it out of the East and go to the Stanley Cup Finals.
That is definitely true. And looking over at the Western Conference, we have the Wild taking on the Blues, the Blackhawks against the Predators, which I know a lot of people around here are really excited about. I'm personally really excited about that matchup, and I know Patrick Kane's supposed to be back, so that could really help the Blackhawks. He's not going to be 100%. I think we all can just go ahead and take that fact. I'd see him probably being about 85% maybe if the Blackhawks are lucky, but also the Jets are taking on the Ducks and the Flames are taking on the Canucks. Really strong matchups here in the Western. But like I said, the Blackhawks-Predators matchup, that's one to look out for.
Mike Fisher is still day-to-day for the Predators, and he's a huge part of that team. Ever since
Absolutely.
the big couple trades they made since the trade deadline, the chemistry's just been kind of off because not everybody's been healthy, and they just haven't played real well.
Yeah. Both Nashville and Chicago are two teams that have kind of backed into the playoffs and have been struggling a bit recently.
Definitely. And I think for Nashville to get the number 2 seed in this bracket, I should say, this is really exciting for a Nashville team.
Yeah.
I mean, Preds fans here on campus have been, it's like they've already won the Stanley Cup in some ways. They're so excited about it, and that's kind of exciting to see. But looking down at the lower half of this Western Conference matchups, I mean, Anaheim and Winnipeg, that's a 1-4 matchup, and I think that's going to be really exciting. Winnipeg could bring some strength into this matchup.
Winnipeg at home. I mean,
Yeah.
in the regular season, that place is bonkers. I can't wait to see how loud it's going to be.
Definitely.
There, for playoff hockey.
I think the same could be said with Vancouver as well.
And Calgary, too. They've
Absolutely.
been out of it for a few years, but have a real good young team right now.
Yeah, and that's another 2-3 matchup there. The 2-3 matchups right now, and all 4 are so strong.
Yeah.
Nashville and Chicago, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Washington, New York, and then Vancouver and Calgary. It's just all 4 are so strong. And I think these could be some of the most pivotal games in the playoffs, in my opinion. But we're going to do something fun now. So if you had to pick your Stanley Cup matchups right now, who would it be?
Oh, jeez. I like the Rangers coming out of the East just because they're just so good right now.
Absolutely.
And then I'll probably, out of the West, the Wild are playing really well, but I'm going to go with St. Louis.
It's solid.
Just because they play a real tough brand of hockey, and I just think that it's playoff hockey. It's built for that.
Right.
I'm going to go with, out of the East, I'm going to pick Montreal because
Good one.
I think that they made some good deadline deals to reinforce the blue line, which was really their only, I thought it was their only major question mark. And in net, Carey Price just, this year has been absurd. Definitely going to win the Vezina, possibly even going to win the MVP. He's just been incredible for them. And then out of the West, I think I'm going to go with, this is probably not going to be too popular of a pick around here, but I'm probably going to go with Chicago. I just think with Kane getting back, that on paper, they're probably the best team in the NHL.
Right.
Just Taves, Kane, Hossa, just like
Very talented.
absurdly
Absolutely.
good hockey team. And I mean, they've been there, they've done it, they've got the experience.
Definitely.
I think they'll probably make it out of the West.
If you would have asked me this morning who I would have picked, I had it down. It was going to be Anaheim against New York, the Rangers. That was my top. But since I got the news that Patrick Kane was back, I've changed my mind. I definitely see the Blackhawks as well. I mean, when Patrick Kane's in there, there's a whole new team to look at. He brings a new life to this team, and it's going to be really good having him back on the ice for the Blackhawks. But, I mean, the Rangers, they are so strong. And that's something you say every season. They're always so strong. But this season, there's something special with this squad. I mean, of course, my heart would love to see the Penguins beat them in that first round. I would love to see that happen, but the odds of that happening are extremely tough, especially with the season the Penguins have had and with them coming in as a 4 seed, like we said earlier. But I would definitely stick with the Blackhawks and Rangers for your Western and Eastern teams. As for who's going to win it all, can't say. That's too tough. I mean, you have too many strong teams right now.
Playoff hockey's always wild, too. Something's going to happen that nobody thinks is going to happen.
Pretty much anybody who's anybody in the playoffs could. I mean, like even the Penguins who are struggling really bad right now. If they get like Ehrhoff back and Fleury gets hot, and Crosby and Malkin, they have more than enough talent to win the Stanley Cup. It's just you
Making
gotta
it
get
work.
everything click at the right time. And it's one of the most difficult trophies to win.
Yeah. Going into this backstretch, or the home stretch, I should say, for the NHL, I mean, I was really surprised not seeing the Kings make it in. Because, I mean, going into last season's playoffs, you know, I mean, a lot of people said that there's no way they could win it all.
Yeah.
I was one of the people who said, you know what, I'm going to take that chance. I picked them to win it all last year.
Yeah.
They did. But, I mean, something just disconnected with them. I was really hoping to see them back in the playoffs this season. But, I mean, out of the teams that we have here, there's not a bad pick, like we've already mentioned, you know. But it's definitely going to be exciting. I mean, this is one playoff that's really tough to kind of decide what's going to happen.
You don't have a pushover team in any of these games, really.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So it's going to be really exciting to watch. And like we said, that starts Wednesday. The first game, I want to say, will take place. There's 2 games at 7.
Yeah.
Capitals and Islanders, and then also Montreal and Ottawa. So, I mean, 2 good games to start off the playoffs with. So, I mean, that's a lot to be looking forward to. Playoffs are going to be really exciting as always. But looking over at other exciting news from the weekend, Jordan Spieth. What a man. He wins the Masters. He's the second youngest winner at 21 years old. Tiger Woods was 5 months younger than him. And I was, whenever I saw that, like, such a small margin of age difference there, broke my heart. But, I mean, Jordan was just lights out. He's the first wire-to-wire winner since 1976, whenever Ray Floyd won it. And Ray Floyd won 17 under par. Jordan wins it 18 under par. I mean, this guy was just absolutely insane. And just looking at some of the things that he did with this Masters Championship, he had 28 birdies, which is the most birdies in one tournament. He was tied for the lowest 72-hole score at 18 under, lowest 54-hole score at 16 under, and the lowest 36-hole score at 14 under. And like I said, first wire-to-wire champion since 1976. I mean, this guy just looked incredible. And I mean, Phil Mickelson made his runs against him at different points. I want to say the closest he came was like 5 strokes at one point whenever Jordan had a major league. But Jordan just looked unstoppable.
Jordan, over the weekend, anything that he put within 15 to 20 feet of the hole was almost, it could go in. Anything could. He was putting so well, he was just seeing things right. He's not a big hitter. He's not a guy that's going to get a lot of eagles, but he's going to put things in the right spot, and he's going to putt really, really well.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that's kind of going away from the Masters, but one thing that's really exciting to think about, the top 2 players in the world right now of golf are 25 years old or younger. You have Rory McIlroy, still top of his game, and then you have Jordan Spieth now at second. So, I mean, to have 2 young guys leading all of golf right now, all of the PGA, that's super exciting for this generation to be seeing. Because, I mean, we could be seeing, like, another Arnold Palmer, another Jack Nicklaus, you know, I mean, just all of these guys. I mean, you still see some of the greats out there, and we had, like, Arnold Palmer at the beginning of the Masters, and, like, Jack Nicklaus was there, too. But, I mean, you could think about, like, the next Mickelsons you have. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And, yeah, you might see guys 15, 20 years from now telling their kids the only reason I like golf is because I watched Jordan Spieth and I watched Rory play. The same reason a lot of people our age today watch golf is because you turn it on Sunday to watch Tiger Woods play.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I mean, there's so many, like you said, like, there's so many good young players that, like, even younger players can look up to now. I mean, like we've already mentioned, you have your Rorys, you have your Jordans, you have your Ricky Fowlers, who, I mean, he has his ups and downs a lot. I mean, same goes with the Masters. He really had his ups and downs, but, I mean, overall, he's a great player to watch. He's still really young, too. But, I mean, I really think that this is such a good time to be a golf fan, no matter what age you are, because so many things are changing in terms of the playmakers right now in the PGA, and it's just so much fun to watch. And it's really becoming like a true family affair now. It's just really exciting. But that's pretty much all we have this week. Really packed show. A lot of exciting things have been going on in the world of sports. So thank you for joining us this week. We will see you next week.